How are you doing today?
I am. I think like the rest of us, locked down. It's dark. It's winter, and I've been in this one small room all day, and I've been on like two client sites, several conversations, been talking to people in America and everything, but you never seem to move. It's just you're always in the same space. It's the way we live
Yeah,
now. Yeah.
yeah. I kind of understand. Did you get out for a walk today or anything like that, or did you just stay in?
No, no. Literally 8 o'clock in the morning to now. It's just been, call after call after call.
Yeah, it's been the same here actually. I give myself promises in the morning. It doesn't seem to happen. I should uh, I should go out when the sun is shining, when the rare times that it is shining this time of the year.
Yeah, yeah. I do get like I've got two young daughters, so they do come in occasionally. They kind of they kind of ram raid the calls,
Yeah,
and at the moment they're dressed as Wonder Woman. So one's a 1 year old and one's just turned 5. So they'll if you see two little Wonder Women running in, that's what it is.
fantastic. That's brilliant. Yeah, yeah. I just go with the flow because it's just we're all at home anyway, right? So we have to. This is the way it is at the moment. Scott, before we get into Agile 20 Reflect, really would like the viewers to just get more of an understanding about yourself. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and what you've been doing the last few years in the agile space?
Sure, sure. Yes, I'm in Scotland, so just outside Edinburgh. I'm in a place called Bathgate. If you know the Proclaimers, it's Bathgate no more. It's quite interesting. Really struggling to grow anything in the garden here, and then I found some old archive footage, and I'm in the middle of the old Leyland factory. you, can,
Really?
you can actually see it back in the '70s footage. This is this whole place, which is good because I say to my son, I say, when I were a lad, son, all this was factory.
So, like, is there any sign of the factory now? Like, is it completely flattened with and
The
houses on top, or what's the
It's
story?
all completely flattened, houses on top, nicknamed Legoland as well because it all looks like the same kind of housing, but at the same time. And I love it because Bathgate's right in the middle between Glasgow and Edinburgh. It's all. I come from Aberdeen originally, so it's kind of handy for the roads and handy for the airport as well. When we used to remember planes. Do you remember
Yeah,
planes?
yeah. I've been on a few, believe it or not. Yeah, they've been
Yeah,
fun.
so it's always really handy. Love it in Bathgate. The other thing I love is 5 minutes I can be out of my house and I'm up on top of a hill with kind of prehistoric cairns, looking at the whole of Scotland. It's just really amazing. We're quite close to B Craig's Park as well, so the kids love going there. We walk around the dams. It kind of feels quite country like as well. Which again has been quite useful during the in the lockdown because it has meant we've been able to get out and have a walk around the country park and things, and that's been helpful.
You mentioned a couple of dams. Like, do you mean like electrical dams, like in James Bond movie kind of dams?
Yeah, a dam. Yeah, there is a dam. So the Bathgate Hills, someone at some point put a dam up in B Craig's Park, and they called it a lock. It's definitely not a lock.
It's fairly big, right?
Yeah,
Big
I,
enough for bunker.
this is where you know that I'm a kind of like a sad agile coach because last time I went down there with my son, who's 17, we started looking at the water that was coming off the runoff, and periodically it would change its flow. And we started to have a conversation of measuring the flow, and then what was causing the periodic wave, and was it, and then we started talking about the steps and how the wave went over the steps as it went down. And I started talking about capacity and flow and Reinertsen, and my son at that point turned off and walked away from me.
Did he come back again? No,
Well, I had to follow him.
just you and the dog now, is
Yeah, no, it's really funny. Yeah, I don't know if you have you ever read that. Have you ever read Reinertsen's book?
it? Yeah, the flow one.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah. The thing I love about it is it's got a waterfall in the front.
yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so agile. Yeah, I'm an agile coach. Worked at large. I've been working at large companies like NatWest. I'm working at GSK at the moment with a pharmaceutical company.
Hmm.
Worked did a lot of work in on lots of like the NHS for years and years. So I don't know if you remember back, there was quite a lot of large IT projects about 15, 17 years ago. So I
Yeah.
was involved in the booking projects then. And it was right about that time when we were trying to do some things really quickly that I started getting interested in. Probably call it the agile attitude. I don't like the word mindset. I think mindset makes people think it's fixed. I think your attitude to things. And did a lot of training around about that time, and got more and more into the idea of things like McGregor's X and Y theory, and and in all my teams when I would run a program team in each part of the England, and each of the teams, and I'd kind of encourage servant leadership. So yeah, reading books on servant leadership. Was very involved in Deming. When I left school, I worked in manufacturing with statistical process control. So kind of was doing Agile before, I knew kind of formally what Agile was. Then about 15 years ago, someone said, "Could you come and help us sort our IT department out because we want to go Agile?" And I went, "Oh, that sounds interesting." So yeah, could you help us come and do Scrum? And I went, "Well, I've never done Scrum." And they said, "Yeah, but I've worked with you before. You'd be wonderful." So went down to the software house, and they'd kind of broken. They were trying to do large kind of 18-month kind of cycle upgrades and things, and it just wasn't working. So I chatted to them, came over the kind of the principles around about breaking stuff down and that, and they said, "Yeah, you're exactly who we want here to come in and kind of help change things." And I was complete imposter syndrome because I didn't really know what Scrum was, yeah. But everything I said about flow, everything I said about breaking things down, everything I said about small batches and everything else, they liked. And then got I think at that point I kind of got a book on Scrum, started reading it, and went, okay, this isn't that hard. And that was really the launch of my first kind of gig that I would say was an agile gig, as opposed to one which was just expediting software delivery or implementing software delivery in a kind of a rapid application way. So latterly, very much involved in meetups. So my friend Martin Burns and I, Martin sadly passed, but Martin and I, we started the Scaled Agile group in Scotland, and from that we kind of started the Heart of Agile group. Been quite close through the Heart of Agile framework with Alistair Coburn and the Heart of Agile people. I just love the simplicity. The whole idea of the Heart of Agile is that it really tries to get things down to the essence. And the beauty about the essence of Agile is you don't have to worry about lots of methods and lots of frameworks. And actually, now I'm thinking about it, it's exactly what I did with that first Agile gig. I didn't go in thinking this is Kanban, this is Scrum. Well, I mean, for months, anytime anyone said should be using Kanban or should be using Scrum, I just kind of like froze because again thinking I don't have enough information. Years later, knowing Dan Vacanti and Jose and everyone else, and having done the Kanban University stuff and having done the PSK and that, and I can now give a more complex answer, which is depends.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Is the question, isn't it? Yeah.
Depends. Yeah. Whereas before, I would just kind of like go, oh, "Is that the time?" Or yeah. But I think that, and this is the kind of the progression idea in the Heart of Agile, that you're actually getting beyond those things, just to the simple 4 lenses, which are collaborate, deliver, reflect, and improve. And actually, that's interesting. So when I first came up with the idea of doing something for the 20th anniversary, we were calling it a retro, and I sent a document out to a few of my friends. So I know kind of Scott Ambler and Jim Benson and Alistair and Ellen Grove at the Agile Alliance, and so I popped the document out, and Alistair came back and went, "We need to talk." I'm like, "Oh my God, what have I done?" Yeah. And he went, "It's not a retro, it's a reflection."
So that's how he came up with that word, right?
Yeah. So that's when and I like the idea as well, and I'll tell you for why. When I use the word reflect, okay, it leaves possibilities open, okay, because I'm not saying go back and say what happened or go over the facts or anything else. It says look back and find out almost like your opinion of the past, review your opinion of the past, and then see how you feel about things. So a reflection is much more formative, than what happened, or a history or something. A reflection is something that's actually changed and immutable. That's what then led us onto the a lot of people said, well, what the themes of what you're doing, and that's when we really came up with the three ghosts. So I think I was on a podcast or something, and someone asked me, and I said, well, we wanted to look at the origins and of Agile, so where it came from, who came into the room at Snowbird, what already existed before Snowbird. I've said before, I did quite a lot of systems work and demoing work, so a lot of that stuff that we use in Agile now, was well mature, even 20 years ago. So
is there a story around that, Scott? Does anybody actually have that story about why they went and who was in the room and who went skiing and all?
Yeah, there's a video. If you go to Alistair Coburn's, if you go to Alistair Coburn's link, actually, I'm probably gonna have a look at it. But Alistair interviewed with Steve Denning. So have you heard of Steve Denning?
Denning, yeah.
So if you go to Alistair's, I think it's T'other Alistair YouTube channel, there's a lot of videos there. He just put the hexagonal architecture one up, which is quite interesting because that's what Netflix is, kind of using. That's his old stuff. The thing about Alistair is Alistair's had loads and loads of great ideas and great books, and it was Agile was the one that took off. Yeah. I knew Alistair back, back from the early 2000s from Crystal Clear. Yeah. And if you watch that video, it's quite good because he asked, well, how many people are using Crystal Clear? And he said, I think there might have been four teams at once. so that video is absolutely amazing. Sorry, I went away from the mic. That video is absolutely amazing. He looks at where the board manifesto came from, which actually came from Bob Martin. So Bob Martin was thinking before about doing a manifesto.
Okay.
He also talks about how the event happened during the day. So, how they came up with the agenda, how they moved through the items, and also how everyone worked with each other, because there was a lot of listening in the room. And actually, when I was thinking of doing, what's turned out to be a festival, but at the time we were just looking at doing something for the anniversary, Alistair kind of told me to watch this video. And then he kept saying to me, if you watch the video, then everything I'm going to tell you in the next half hour is there. And I did. Also, Alistair's, a little bit of the history of everyone, of everyone that went into the room.
That's nice.
But and what's interesting is when we talked about the festival, what's it? Kierkegaard says you're going to live your life forward, and you understand it backward. I love that. So
live your life forward.
I understand it backwards.
Everything in hindsight. Yeah.
So when we decided we wanted to do something for the 20th, it kind of came around a friend of mine, Craig Coburn. Don't know if you know Craig. He does. Yeah. Craig lives not far away from here, and I'd been at Lean Agile Global, Jose's event
in July, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, and I was very taken with Dan Vacante's Secret History of Agile, and I don't know if you've seen it, another great video.
Yeah.
It's kind of our Secret History of Kanban. It's where he kind of looks back at the origins of Kanban. And then after that, we've been talking, because Craig had ran the BCS's 10th year anniversary. So like 10 years ago when they had an anniversary. Jose was supposed to do it. He wasn't there and Craig did it. And I think, to quote Craig, Scott, he mentioned it to me, and then I ran off like a mad person and made it a global thing. So I thought we should do some for the 20th. And it was quite interesting because Craig and I just, we spoke about it, and then we started talking to some other people, and there was a lot of interest. But I was very clear not to collapse the idea or what it was too soon. And just to try and get people involved and get people's ideas and solicited things. And I did a large, I'll probably call it a market test. So I got on the website for, I think in August, we gathered about 2 weeks worth of data from everyone as to what they wanted to, do. And then I got that data back, and one thing that occurred to me was it was completely different.
So much variety.
Yeah, some people want to look at the past. Some people want to look at the future. Some people want to look at Manifesto 2. Some people want to look at just what's missing from what we're doing. Other people want to look at Agile Beyond software.
Software,
And,
yeah, yeah.
so when I looked at that, I realized that whatever we're doing, we could think big. And then I thought, well, why don't we make it the whole of February? Because we're not really, everyone's locked in. Yeah, and we're not going out, and we're all at home. Our meetups quite quickly pivoted into doing things online. But one of the things I realized was a lot of the meetups feel the same, because you go along to a meetup and it's an hour and there's a speaker and and you kind of come away. And so we had Roman Pitchler at the in the Heart of Agile Scotland, and that was a really good session. But we made it very interactive, and we dropped out into different groups, and we did some creative art and things. So the idea of the Edinburgh Festival came across. So have you ever been to the Edinburgh Festival?
I have, yeah. It was the end of a stag party, actually. Yeah.
Another great metaphor for what we should do. Maybe we've just had an Agile 20-year stag party.
It was good fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So just for those people that have never been to the Edinburgh Festival, there's no quality control in events. The audience gets to pick what they go to. Yeah. And some of the things you can go to is, the Usher Hall, and it's completely packed out. And then the next thing, you're in the back room of a pub that can seat 4 people. And everything's in the program, and you get to pick what you're doing. And some of it could be anything from comedy to dancing. It doesn't matter. And I thought this format would be quite interesting for a couple of things. A few people, when they first came in, like Daniel Mezek, had a very fixed idea of what they wanted to do. And what they wanted to do is call out the dumpster fire that is Agile at the moment, because in his mind it's a dumpster fire.
Oh, you mean the Agile Industrial Complex thing, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. But what occurred to me was when I was talking to people around the world, and especially places like, and latterly I've been talking to people in Nepal, Azerbaijan, Nigeria and things, and they were actually seeing Agile as a great thing, helping them in their governance and their companies and their just how they do things, and they see it as a kind of great freedom thing. So what's interesting is some of the people that have been with it a long time have seen it change, and it isn't what it was.
I'm kind of disappointed, if you like, and other people have hope still.
Yeah, like punk. Yeah. Remember, punk was punk was only good when punk was punk. Maybe this is. I need to talk to Jim Benson. Jim Benson was a punk, so I need to talk to him about this. But like as soon as punk becomes like on everyone's, God Save the Queen, as soon as it's on everyone's playlist and they're doing it at the school disco, for the primary school, it's not punk anymore,
Yeah.
So I think some people were missing that. I think there's other elements that sometimes we use the frameworks in Agile to make people do things, and Daniel's really against any kind of imposition on people. He thinks people should think and self-organize, and I think that works. I think that works really well too. So what I was realizing was people were coming in with different, very strongly held passions, and they were arguing with each other,
which is kind of pointless, right? Because you can just let everybody do whatever they want, right?
Yeah, and then I realized that one of the things that we probably need to do with Agile was bring people together. And whether that's bringing people together within Agile, bringing people together with within
even new people that are outside of the software space, that like you're working in GSK right now, you're probably doing some stuff outside of software as well.
Yeah.
That whole world needs to be welcomed as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I think we've got lots and lots of feuds in Agile. Yeah, and it was trying to kind of get step beyond that. So Miles, who's down in South Africa, who's a part of the trustees, when he was asked what's his 5 things that he'd hope to come out of Agile, he said peace, and that's just kind of peace within the community, because we can't keep ripping each other apart. I had a good friend Martin, and Martin liked safe and scaled Agile, and and he liked it a lot. And but he got a lot of flack for liking it from the Lean Agile community.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, just one of the other formative things around about this was in May, a year after Martin had died, we had an online kind of memorial, because you couldn't have a down the pub memorial. And again, at the memorial, I thought, well, everyone should be there. Everyone that knew Martin should be there. And what I did was I had different meeting rooms. And at the time, Zoom didn't let you pick a room. So I just kind of I got friends to set up about 6 rooms in Zoom. And then everyone could, so if there was the kind of his music room, the Lean Agile room, the safe room, and again, it worked, but the communities went off to do their own thing. Yeah. And that's kind of how we got to, there's a kind of everyone goes off and does their own thing. So again, that's where the bringing people together came from the trustees. So they went off to do a mission statement, and they came back and they said bridge building, and I loved it. It was really they came back with bridge building.
Excuse me, yeah.
Bridge building. So between business and technology, between different types of agile and things, and that's why everyone, deliberately, when we first started this, some people were like, well, if SAFE are coming, I'm not going. And I'm going, look, you're getting this wrong. Everyone's welcome. Yeah, everyone can come. And then that progressed to the festival format where everyone could put their own event on. So, and if you want to do an event slugging, I don't know,
some approach or whatever.
Yeah, do it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But at the same time, don't go to someone else's event and cause havoc if they are doing something that you don't like. So mindfulness. So some people don't like mindfulness in Agile. Other people love mindfulness in Agile. Which is great. Well, you have your mindfulness events. We'll put it on the program clearly shown as mindful. And if you turn up the mindfulness event and you don't like mindfulness, and you don't kind of go, that was a terrible event, I didn't like mindfulness. And the other thing is, we're going to end up with lots and lots of events you can pick. Okay. So just watch the things you want to see. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't go and burn the radio station down because you don't like the radio show.
That's really nice. So it really is based on the theme of the Fringe Festival. So in Edinburgh, is it?
Yeah.
Go to what you want, and don't be causing fights in other people's rooms if they're having fun. Go to what you want to go to yourself, and try to meet people as well, I guess.
Yeah, and navigate your own festival. So we came up with some interesting innovations. So I'm particularly proud of some of the thinking we did on this. So the first thing was the bridge building.
Yeah.
And then we thought if we wanted to do bridge building, we should probably make this global. And if we want to do it global, let's do a two-way learning thing. So this isn't a case of like everyone in the UK and everyone in America telling the rest of the world what Agile is. Okay. Yeah. This is everyone sharing. And so I started thinking, how could we do this? How could we get speakers to speak in places that they would have never spoken? Well, the first idea was, why don't we have ambassadors in every country?
Yeah. When did you start that, by the way? Was that about 3 months ago?
No, it's only about 6 weeks. It's been amazing. And we've got 50 already now.
Wow.
So the ambassador idea was when we, do you know Simon Wardley's work?
Yeah, the Wardley maps, yeah.
Yeah, so the Wardley doctrine is things like, have an action bias. But one of the things is distribute as much as you can and distribute the decision making. So it's a bit like David Marquette's work, put the decisions where the people are.
Yeah.
I thought, well, we can't centrally run something that's culturally sensitive across the world. But if we had people locally looking at it, that's going to, and they could help. And then I started thinking, well, what if we didn't make this a kind of like a central, like a central conference, but we actually really empowered those ambassadors and said, look, you're in charge. Tell us what you need, and then we thought, well, that's an experiment. Let's go and see if anyone wants to apply to be an ambassador. And I think 100 people have applied to be ambassadors so far. I think
Wow.
we've got 70 ambassadors. And I must admit, just before I came on here, I was looking at the chat, and it's there's an ambassador WhatsApp chat where they're all on it, and one of the questions which I love was, do we have a Brazilian ambassador? And then someone wrote, no, we don't. And then someone else wrote, well, would you like to have one? Because I know several people that can contact them, and it's grown that way. Yeah,
Wow.
it's everyone's using their own networks. None of this is
Yeah.
centrally planned.
Yeah. And that brings me on to something because I saw something somewhere. I was looking on the Agile20Reflect website. I think I saw something about circles. So you're kind of hinting at this, right? In terms of, is this a holacracy thing or is it like coming from somewhere else? The circle idea.
Yeah, I mean, it roughly is, and I'll tell you why it's not a holacracy idea, because what I did was I did a little bit of thought, and I thought, what kind of areas would we need to have? And I thought we need a legal bit, so we'll need finance. We need to engage with organizations. We'll need to, the ambassadors were just forming at this point. I said, we'll need someone to look at the ambassador area. We need, I think, red teaming is another thing that we do, which is quite interesting. Have you ever heard of red teaming?
I've heard of it, but just remind me, please. Yeah.
So red teaming is where you specifically get some people to be the opposition to
Yeah.
criticize all your decisions.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's kind of like ritual descent, is it?
Yeah, so it comes from the like the military games in the US. So
Yeah.
you'd have the blue team and the red team, and you'd kind of
Yeah.
you'd fight each other for the flag.
Yeah.
And it's worked really, really well because I almost use them as a filter before I take things to the trustees. So if it doesn't get past the red team, it doesn't get voted on by the trustees. It's been a great, and some of the things that they've kind of suggested is, they really push back on large company donors. So initially, it could have been that some of the large organizations could have just funded it all, and they pushed off on that because they wanted to be a community event. We always said it was going to be a community event, and so that was a good decision where they said, no, you can't do that. Get your donations from everybody, in small donations. And
So there's no sponsors then, is it? Or is it like tiny sponsors? Or what way does that work?
we're going to go fund me.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah.
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 But
Yeah.
what we weren't going to do was go to Accenture or go to say for people and say, give us 10 grand or something to run this.
Mm.
And the other thing was the treasurer was very keen. I'll go back to the circle thing. So we had a kind of meeting. I said, these are all these areas that we need to look at.
Mm.
Who would like to, out of the trustees, who would like to kind of look after those or have an interest in them? And we kind of broke down to different people went to different things. And then at the same time, we had a Slack group for volunteers. And I think there's about 300 people in the Slack group now. So, so what we did was we wanted to come up with a term. Now, I always want to use the term gyre. A gyre is it comes from the Greek. It means to hold hands and swirl.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a water term. It's kind of like a whirlpool's a gyre. And everyone said, no, nobody knows what that is. Go away. You got some good ideas, Scott. That's not one of them. And then someone, I think it was Dov, said, what about a circle? And I suddenly realized that was the word I was going for, because it's got the kind of the
emotion. Yeah.
Some of the trustees said at that point, well, yeah, sociography. What's the word? The circle idea comes from.
Sociocracy, or
yes, that's the one. So it's been a long day.
Yeah.
And what I said was each of the areas could do what they want. So if you wanted to run things, in a little bit more hierarchical, like marketing does, that's great. If you wanted to be, completely flat in a circle, like the ambassadors do, that's great as well. But the idea of the circles were that it would be flat, and there wouldn't necessarily be any leadership. It's kind of worked, and it's kind of not. Some of the circles have worked better. The latest innovation is we're thinking of putting a Scrum Master into each of the circles, because we did have we've used Kanban boards, and we've noticed that the work isn't really up to date in the Kanban boards.
Yeah.
Um,
Because if everybody's responsible, nobody's responsible sometimes, right? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So that really got me down a couple of weeks ago. Really got me down. I was thinking, um, and then we had a kind of the trustees got together and we said, like, what's our priorities? And I'm doing the look. This is like a system. This is an ecosystem. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's no priority. It's like a body. You can't prioritize the hand over the leg, right? But but one of the things I realized that in the systems approach and then using the Wardley doctrine was that this a lot of the circles didn't actually see what the other ones were doing, and I don't think anyone saw the power and the energy in the ambassador one. And by putting the decision making locally, so finding meetups, finding events, finding speakers locally, by pushing all that down almost and forcing it down. So when they come and ask centrally for stuff, I always kind of say, well, what do you want to do? Or what would you like to happen?
Yeah.
Or what's the, yeah.
I'm just curious as well, like, just stepping back a bit, like, so the trustees, like, when did that all start? Like, and when did they become trustees, and how did that work?
Okay. So I've said at the beginning there was quite a lot of conflict going on within the group.
You did, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and at that time, I realized I had to take it away from all these great, keen, agile, passionate people fighting,
Yeah.
and move it forward. So what I decided to do was to set up the trustees, and to get the trustees, I contacted Scott Ambler at PMI and Ellen Grove at Agile Alliance and Alistair Coburn at Heart of Agile. And I think I've got quite a few LinkedIn followers as well. So kind of we just message out and say who would like to be a
Kind of
trustee.
keep it together, keep it sane.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
what I found was a lot of people that run meetups, a lot of people that do lots of things, don't have the time to be a trustee. So the thing of the trustee was you had to be able to give one night a week to it at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah.
And I was really pleased that the people that came forward were all new to me. Yeah. Many of them were kind of new in Agile as well, which is quite exciting. So they're still passionate around about doing their first projects in Agile. We got two women in Nigeria, two women in Russia. We had two men from Canada. We got Shelby in Wales, Youssef in London. Brandon, who I work with in Scotland, came along and helped as well. And we all formed this group of trustees. The first question was, well, how do we want to make sure that this doesn't become like an overly commercialized thing? And so Shelby went off and came back, and we're a charity. So we're actually an educational charity. So we are promoting education. All the funds and that need to be charitably managed. It's also at a very high level of governance. Yeah. So all our money is accounted for. All our money is kind of carefully used.
So that's a big deal, is it? You had to get a probably charity license and all that kind of stuff as well, did you?
Took weeks. It was almost like every trustee meeting was where we at with the charity, where we're at with the charity. But what it really did was it forced us to not just focus on the doing, but focused on the kind of the clarity around about funds and accounting. Brandon, who kind of took on as treasurer, really had the mindset early on that we would try and do this for free. So I think we've raised 60 pounds at the moment. And everything we've done, even things like that, someone came along to redesign the website and to donate and pay for the website hosting. People have just been coming along and donating and giving things, and it's truly community. The speakers that are coming along, nobody's getting paid.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we're not taking a lot of money from large companies or organizations, so we don't have to. We don't have to promote them or anything.
So it's not even obvious when I look at the website that you can do. Oh yeah, it does. It says support us. Actually, yeah, okay, and that support us brings you to the principles. Okay, the patrons, the organization. Oh, you can do the GoFundMe there. Yeah, I got it. I'll just stick up that link actually for people so that they So it's Agile20Reflect.org support us.
Yeah.
But how do they find out that they can give other things? I mean, is that just happening through word of mouth or something, or what way is that working?
I mean, again, a little bit of word of mouth. I think Ellen wrote out to all of Agile Alliance. I believe PMI Safe, the Business Agility Institute have written out to everybody in that, and they're in 94 different countries. So there's actually a real buzz. It's almost like we haven't really had to kind of look for people. People are coming up all the time. It's kind of fascinating.
So how does it feel for you then? Like, I mean, so you got the trustees now, you got the red teaming. You're is it you or is there a number of people with you trying to kind of pull this all together before it goes to the trustees? How
Yeah,
does that work?
so there's a circles and circle leads, and then
Okay, yeah,
and people have come into that.
yeah,
Um, again, I guess I've leveraged my network. So people that know me and they've seen the posts on LinkedIn and that go, I'd like to have some of that, or I'd like to get involved in that.
mm,
So the ambassadors have been great. I'll just kind of summarize a conversation I had with on Thursday.
thank you.
So the ambassador in Nepal goes, "Hi, I'm the ambassador in Nepal," and I'm like, "Oh my god, we've got an ambassador in Nepal! I didn't even know they did Agile in Nepal." And she goes, "Yeah, there's 3 meetups out here. We do quite a lot of talks." And she said, "So just to get it clear, we can do anything." I said, "Yeah." So talk to the meetups and get the meetups, put something in the calendar, and as long as it's themed with the 3 ghosts. And she looked at me, and I went, "You
There you
don't know
go.
about the 3 ghosts." So it's the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost of Christmas future. So it's the ghost of Agile past, the ghost of Agile present, and the ghost of Agile future. And then she said, "Well, we've done some talks before. Could we do them again?" And I was like, "Yeah." Because one of the huge things with this is we want to record everything and have it all centrally recorded. So we end up with like a huge snapshot of Agile all over the world.
So
Yeah.
does that mean you need to have a massive system, like a massive conferencing system to organize all this?
No, because we're going to use YouTube.
Just YouTube channel basically.
Yeah. So the conferencing system, we don't want it centrally run. So
Yeah.
if you have a look at the program we've got there, the first event to go in was my friend Sath, and Sath. So the future. I used to be part of the future of work at Scotland. I guess I still am in an honorary sense, but I don't do
Yeah,
any of the organising anymore.
yeah.
And they completely clicked to what I was trying to do, and they said, "Well, we'll get the first event in." So they basically went to their own meetup, which they always have.
Yeah.
They phoned up some of their previous speakers. So they phoned up Joanna Rothman and Tobias Mayer and Lisa Adkins and Dan Vacanti and said, "Would you like to go into panel? So we're the future of work. So what's the future of Agile?" And then they put it in, and they said, this is an event in the festival," and we put it into the program,
Very nice.
and that's it. So simple,
Yeah.
no infrastructure needed.
So how do people get involved in this? I can see on the website you can apply to be a speaker or you can submit events, like basically just through some kind of, they look like some type forms or Google forms or something like that.
Yeah.
Is there any other way that people can get involved? I mean,
Well, they could. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, there's a few things. So a lot of this is getting driven from the Slack group. So if you come to the Slack group, and as you've probably seen some people today, if you went in the Slack group saying, "Hi, I've just arrived. My name's Peter. How can I help?" So it's a little bit like one of those mobilization things where people just come in the door and go like, "Hi, how can I help?" So that's a Slack group.
yeah,
The ambassadors are forming groups. So like the American ambassadors, they've got a subgroup.
yeah,
So and they're working away. So you can actually get involved with the American ambassadors if you're in America, or the Indian ambassadors if you're in India,
yeah.
and then they're also, everyone's doing a great job of negotiating the geopolitics.
Explain. I'm intrigued.
Um,
Without getting in trouble.
so
Is there a way of doing it without getting in trouble, I wonder?
I'm letting the ambassadors handle their own countries and their own sensitivities.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's smart.
Part of the part of the way when I first started thinking about this, I was thinking of the Anglican Church. Yeah, they have a very diverse group, the Anglican Church. Because you've got the kind of the Episcopalians in the USA, and you've got you got the church in South Africa and Nigeria, and you got the church in India, and they've all got very different views on things. So
Yeah.
So it's this idea about local practice and things. It's done locally.
Let them sort out what's right for them. Yeah.
And even in terms of topics, so there might be some topics that that would play better than other ones.
Yeah.
But one of the key things we got, the first things we did was a code of conduct, and it was a very big code of conduct. It's one of the biggest I've seen, and it's also about respect and dialogue. So it's actually a blueprint for people who don't like each other to talk.
I'm gonna check that out. Is that available online? Is that the code of conduct, or is
I haven't put it online just yet, but
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, at times it felt like an amnestis document because it was the one we signed before we moved into the trustee phase.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like about it's almost like it says things that all voices are equal, yeah, but at the same time you need to respect experience. So it is complicated. So what does that mean? It says, well, maybe you don't think that such and such doesn't work, but if someone spent 20 years on it, they might have a better idea about what you think about it in 2 minutes. So don't,
Yeah. Okay.
And also how to disagree. So talk about the topics. Don't criticize the person.
Yeah.
Really, really interesting. Dov did a lot of work on that. You should interview Dov about it. It was.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, because if nothing else, that would be a major outcome from the whole thing. If he came up with like a code of conduct that maybe lots of other organizations could use. But
there's a code of conduct for bringing people together that don't like each other.
Yeah.
Which is not, and so it's interesting.
Sounds like most organizations to me.
I don't know. Don't you think meetups people just kind of?
Yeah, they're kind of together. Yeah, to be fair, yeah.
Birds of a feather flock together.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But I mean, like in companies and stuff, So
I know in Scotland, someone said, "Well, why don't we move all the meetups together to do a collider event for the festival?" And I just rolled my eyes.
And even the word. It's just a good metaphor for what might happen.
And I'm like, yeah, we've only got to February, yeah. and then I was talking to Evan Laybourne, and he was talking about Melbourne, and he said something similar about this for kind of 5 meetups in Melbourne, and they all enjoy being in their own meetup. So yeah. But again, that's where the festival format comes in, because each of those 5 meetups can do something separate.
So people can join the Slack channel. They can go onto the website to subscribe as a speaker, to register some kind of event.
So I call it Shape, right?
Shape.
Okay, then we'll talk about the speakers in a little bit.
Yeah.
So you can speak and register to speak. And there's a little directory there that the ambassadors are going to use. And actually the ambassadors said, look, we're happy to be ambassadors, but how do we get access to different speakers? And I said, well, what if we pre-registered speakers so you knew you could say you were part of the festival and contact them?
Mm-hmm.
And that within that kind of thing, you might find Jeff Watts talking in Nigeria, where he wouldn't normally be talking in Nigeria. He'd probably be talking in Birmingham or things. So Roman Pitchler talking in Vietnam or something. There's a real kind of we can really move people around the globe. What I'd also like to see is fresh voices. So people from Vietnam talking in the UK, people from India talking in the USA. So that it does become a kind of a bridge building.
Yeah.
And actually, when I got the speakers, I asked them to rate how many talks they'd done. So was it over 20? Was it between 20 and 10? Is it between 1 and 10, or they never talked? And part of the reason I did that was I actually want to identify the people that never talked.
Good answer.
Yeah. So that's quite exciting. The other thing we did with the ambassadors was we realized that because there was so many ambassadors, we needed a little bit of scaling in there. So I went to the UN website and I came up with the regions of the world, which is quite fascinating. I'm not sure I'd have done it that way. So for instance, Ireland and Britain are in North Europe.
Okay.
So we're in North Europe with Scandinavian countries, Faroe Islands, our old football foe, Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, Finland, Denmark. So that's us. That's northern. So again, leaning on my friend's network, one of my friends, Jake, when it went out, he came and said he would do Northern Europe, and it's quite exciting because he's now getting lots of new friends in all these countries, and each of those countries are putting ambassadors in, and then each of those ambassador areas are, if they've got like a lot of big cities, are getting kind of even more ambassadors. So in the UK, we're probably going to have about 6. Yeah,
it's massive. Germany be a fair few as well, I guess.
Yeah, but here's the beauty. Mike Lieber's doing Western Europe. I have no idea what he's doing. I know I've seen the French ambassador, I've seen the Belgian ambassador, I've seen all these ambassadors coming up. I'm not involved. It's brilliant. It's just completely, completely empowerment.
And is there any roll up or anything? You don't bother with all of that stuff. You just trust that it's all happening okay. And if they have problems, I'm sure they'll shout anyway, right?
Yeah, and a couple of them have reached out to get help, but the conversations are always the same. I can do anything, yeah. So I could do this, yeah. Can I do this, yeah. And then after a while they go, okay, so right. And then I say good luck. And this is real idea of you've got complete empowerment and control. The other thing I stress is, I was saying this to a South American guy from Chile. I wouldn't want to go to South America and Brazil and see the same stuff, or South America and India and see the same stuff. I'd be expecting all these different areas and things to have their own stuff and to be completely different. I've even encouraged them to have their own logos and things and their own web pages. One of the things I loved was the South Americans translated the website themselves without. Yeah, so it wasn't like we had to find a translator to do a Spanish translation. They just did it. And they said, look, we're hosting this on our website. Is that okay? And I went, perfect.
And did you have to do anything about like translation guidelines? They just did it. That was fantastic.
It's a complete volunteer, complete community thing.
Yeah. And how does it feel? Like, is this taking up all of your time at the moment, Scott? Like, it's something.
I kind of learned a lesson last week. I've been doing a bit of work in pulling the patrons together, and that was really taking a lot of effort because a lot of it is like negotiation and person negotiation, and we also want the patrons of the festival to be very representative of inclusivity and diversity.
Yeah,
and so honestly, I don't have a problem with this, but it was mainly North Americans in the room at Snowbird. And it was all men, yeah. And Agile 20 years later is so different, and it looks so different that I wanted to make sure that we had lots of different kind of patrons with different backgrounds, and also some people not actually involved in Agile, and we specifically didn't want to kind of have the patrons that were just like the manifesto signers. Nothing wrong with the manifesto signers, but it's about where we're at now, where we're going, as much as it is about where we've been.
So I just want to ask you, so the trustees I get, the patrons, are these kind of like the people who might lead the way forward for the next 20 years? Is that the idea? Or
no, the patrons are for the it's actually, I think it was Simon Wardley said, well, what's a patron? I went, well, have you ever seen Prince Charles at the Chelsea Flower Show? You're on the letterhead, you turn up and you smile. There's a little bit more to that, but one of the things we found was that I was fighting confirmation bias on this all the way through. So for those of you listeners who don't know what confirmation bias is, and I kind of hope that like a lot of us do, it's everyone thinks it's a conference. So the first question they had was, what are your tracks? And then it was like, we don't have any tracks. It's a festival. Yeah. But
what's the program?
Who's speaking? Yeah. So very quickly we kind of realized we're really up against that. Some people like to see who's involved and who's backing, and the patrons fill that role quite nicely. What was really exciting was the patrons have really gotten behind this now. So kind of Esther Darby, really excited in the Slack group, bringing academics into the academic group. Alistair's been encouraging the Heart of Agilists to get involved. Evan Laybourne, lots of people have been doing lots of, getting more and more people activated. April Jefferson, who I love, is she's been getting more and more people of color from the USA, involved in things and more of the activist side. Roman's there, so we've got great coverage. The patrons will be talking about their hopes for the festival, and at the end of the festival, I want to do one of those kind of like Edinburgh Festival shows where, what did you like best for the festival? What was the thing that you got out of it? What do you think we can take forward in Agile? Yeah.
So do you think it will end at the end of February? Like, is it just that's it, February, and then it's over? Like, what have you talked about so far?
So, Carl Scotland?
Yeah.
So Carl does Lean Agile Brighton. So Carl is actually doing a strategy session with us because there's a wide range of views. Some people want to have this as a community going forward because it's very independent, very community led, and I just really want to get through the MVP, which is the festival. And so when people talk to me about what's next or what's after, there's a couple of things that really came across. Is for me personally, is none of the trustees or anyone are really trying to make any money out of this or make any names out of it or anything. So it is all kind of community led. I'd love the marketing to be local as well. Instead of a lot of central marketing, just to have it local. I wanted to celebrate great stuff. So you probably saw the Who's Your Agile Hero campaign going out. So even if we can call out great Agilists and say who we are, we've got the speaker directory. So I'm actually thinking, what could I do with that? Because there's about 200 speakers there now.
Yeah.
So what if I got them all to make a 10-minute video about their Agile?
That'd be cool,
wouldn't it?
Yeah, you could kind of do a live stream thing going forward as well, guest speakers every month or whatever.
Exactly.
Really
and
cool.
because of the format of the month, I was talking to someone last week and they said I could do a liberating structure. I said, yeah, you could get a different speaker in every night and you could do every liberating structure.
Yeah, you could, yeah. Or do a string of them, yeah.
Just record them.
Yeah.
It's such a fascinating idea. And but what I found was people were kind of getting very stressed in the central bit. So a couple of things I've stressed. One is if we've got 50 ambassadors, and each of those ambassadors reaches out to one or two meetups, and honestly, if they can do this in Nepal, they can do it in Glasgow, and they put on 2 events. Yeah, we've got the biggest festival that ever happened in Agile already, because we'll have we'll have 100 events over February.
Yeah,
and that's almost like doing it without anyone sweating. Yeah. Now, what's been happening is companies have been phoning me up and saying, "Can we do things?" And I'm saying, "Yeah, of course you can." And there's a little bit of stuff, news embargo, but some of the other associations that have been doing things are saying, "Well, can we come in and collaborate?" And I said, "Yeah, of course, we can collaborate." And I think it's all down to the trustees' sentiment that we're not trying to get out in anything of this. We're not trying to make any money out of it. It's just purely a celebration. Of Agile and the people of Agile, and we are just really trying to, perhaps get the secret histories of the past and record it before time gets lost. The academic circle is looking at doing surveys, and I know, Dave Snowden was talking about doing some oral history capture. So again, we can gather information and pull that forward. And then also the debates and the new voices. So here's what I really, really want. imagine if people from different places were getting together at this really dark, horrible time and having some fun. And in the fun, they made relationships. And in those relationships, they came up with new ideas that nobody ever had. All right? So 17 people 20 years ago got together in a room and birthed Agile. Yeah. What would several thousand people getting together across the world be able to do?
Be amazing. The only thing I'm thinking about is if you're doing this all on YouTube, how do the people kind of meet each other? You know what I mean?
Oh, so no. So what we're doing is we're using the existing meetups and Zoom and everything. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. We're just recording it all for YouTube.
And then you think, oh, got it. Yeah. Okay.
Nobody's going to be able to drink from this fire hose. This is like the Olympics. You'd have to nobody can do the whole Olympics. You'd have to stay awake, with matchsticks in your eyes. So, and there's going to be there's going to be events on everywhere. I think the only place where we're struggling a little bit is China.
Okay, so need to get the word out. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's language barriers and and things. One of the first ambassadors we got was Harry. Herbert and Herbert Shin at South Korea. Yeah, and I'm like, we got a Korean ambassador. It was like one of the first ambassadors was a Korean. Who knew they were doing it?
And what about Japan, Australia? They're all covered.
Well, I think Australia's quite well covered.
Yeah.
So one of the kind of availability bias is Heart of Agile's big in Australia, so we know quite a lot of people out there. Peter Lamb's doing Oceania at that level, but he's also helping out in the area. So I know we've got a Singapore ambassador, and
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to go on. I can go online just now and have a little look. I haven't been. I haven't really been looking that much because I've been letting Grace and Kershid and Simeon run with that.
While you're looking for that, the Agile moving outside of software, like how much focus is there on that in this festival?
It's about 50-50 actually. So the Business Agility, Institute, been really because they're one of the first people to advertise. We were looking for people. We got a few trustees from there, and Miles Hopkins is amazing. He's very much on the business side into Agile HR and things.
Okay, I love it. And because that's where it's all at for you for the next 20 years, isn't it? It's like that's where the explosion of agility is at the moment.
Yes, yeah. So really well covered in there. Yeah.
Good. I wanted to ask you about the Agile Manifesto, right? So, as you said, like 17 men in Double Mountain, 20 years ago, whatever. Is there any word of a new manifesto, or do you think it's just going to they're just going to leave it rest?
Okay, so
it's often cartoon things in it, but I'm not sure whether people were serious about it or they're just kind of having a bit of a laugh,
I'm going to tread carefully on this one.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm going to do it deliberately. I had a conversation. I'm going to take it in a different way because it's probably easier to do it this way.
Yeah.
I was in love. I'm still in love with Deming. I love the Deming Institute. Quote Deming all the time. Great guy. Absolutely adore Deming's work. So one of the key things in Deming's work is the 14 points. Yeah. And I think it's completely legitimate to debate the 14 points. Why? Yeah. Well, they were very much written for marketing, very much written around about manufacturing, definitely of their time if you look at them. Yeah. You can actually, I think even like the Deming Institute and things would admit that, if Deming was alive today, he would have changed his 14 points. Now, the thing about the Agile Manifesto, people that went into the room, they did a great job on the day. If you go back to Alistair's video, they found a way to collaborate. They found a way to come up with common terms. They found a way to vote and decide. And they came out of the room with almost like like a summary of everything that they were all working on independently, and pulled it together into something that was pretty useful. Okay, so the first thing I would say, and one of the patrons has said this to me, he's not very interested in doing any kind of the Agile 2 type stuff because we've got a perfectly serviceable set of principles and the manifesto. So the first question I would look at when I look at the manifesto is, well, what's broken with it? Why do we need a new one? That's different from saying, should we discuss it? And is it fit for purpose? Yeah. And I think everyone should discuss everything all the time. So I would hope as part of the festival, there's a big discussion around about, how are the items holding up? Alistair says this. That was a talk. He was up in that West headquarters. I was sitting about 2 feet away from him. And he said this, and it really caught me. When he talks to the original manifesto signers, he likes to ask them a question, which is, which of the principles gives you heartburn? Yeah. So which of that gives you a little bit of, and what it turns out is they've all got one they kind of compromised on. Yeah. So maybe you came from different backgrounds. I think maybe you came from Scrum, maybe you came from the XP side, maybe maybe DSTM. There was one you had a little bit of heartburn on. So that's interesting in itself. What I would say is I really do wish people luck to look at that, and I think we're probably at a point where there's a new generational time to take it forward.
Yeah, a more diverse group as well.
Yeah, and not just software. So again, if you so Alistair plays a game, which is I say this is missing from the manifesto, and he says, well, that's implied in this. So again, it's there's the implied over the explicit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you got to remember that what the manifesto was really boiled down over those days by some very smart brains. So
yeah.
And they did want something that was simpler. I'm really into the sort of the Be More Pirate movement. Have you ever heard of it?
No, I haven't heard of that.
So this Vasco Duarte interviewed me as part of his podcast about 4 years ago, and we had a big discussion about Deming, and then one of the questions was how do you overcome the systemic barriers? Because as Deming always says, with the red bead stuff and that.
Yeah.
And I said that's easy, piracy, and unrehearsed, no script. Just went out and said I really do encourage teams to do their own thing. Next client I went to, we actually started a team called the Space Pirates, and all of the retro stuff was pirates. All of the even things like the kind of the refinement was all like a little island that's far away and then further away, and a little desert island that was further away. So you can actually put things into the different
time horizons. Yeah.
Amazing. And then we even got a parrot, and the parrot I had a huge fun. I think the management really didn't like me there because they thought I was raising like this rebellion in the workplace. But then I wrote some articles, and if you actually on Medium, and if you have a wee look, it kind of goes through my love of teams and communication and how teams can work and getting that motivation and things. And then after I did the podcast, someone wrote to me and said, you didn't mention Steve Jobs. And I said, well, why would I mention Steve Jobs? And it was like, the pirate thing. And I went, well, what pirate thing? And it's like, well, Steve Jobs wrote, why be in the Navy? Why be in the Navy when you could be a pirate? And he had the pirate flag flying at Apple, when they started. I knew nothing about that, so I did a bit of research on that. And again, Alistair Coburn always reminds me a bit of a pirate.
For me, the manifesto, it kind of stood the test of time. Like you change a couple of words, and it kind of still works. There's a couple of things that look a bit dated and aged at this stage, but thing is that so many people have tried to make a new manifesto that didn't take off really, did they? There's been a
No,
number of other ones, you know.
yeah, but maybe we're at time to. This is my point about the kind of the Be More Pirate. They've got a manifesto there, and it's all about freedom. So
Yeah,
I think the recipe is freedom. Yeah. So you need one part freedom. Yeah. You need kind of one part respect, and you need I guess one part kind of community, and I think that's what
yeah,
we need. And again, I think Jim Benson said this, which was Snowbird was liberation theology for the least oppressed group of people in the world, kind of white male developers.
yeah.
But it's this idea of the hope that's implied in the manifesto is that we can actually get beyond where we are and we can work better.
What?
But we need that hope more now than ever, and young people need that hope more now than ever. Yeah,
True.
I was at a talk today where we're doing a kind of a leadership discussion with some leadership, and my colleague kept going on about waterfall this, waterfall that, waterfall the other, and I was dawning on me that my daughter Katie, she's part of the festival. She's doing some work. She's at uni just now doing interaction design, so she's been involved in some of the making the materials up. She wouldn't know what waterfall was.
No, no point in talking about it.
Yeah, there's a whole
Yeah,
generation of people coming up.
yeah,
Martin Burns always said this, that everything we're doing is generational, right? It's going
yeah,
to take a generation to change, but by goodness me, when it's changed, we'll have changed 160 years worth of management thought.
yeah. I hope that's true. Yeah,
I don't
I
think
think
we have
yeah,
an alternative. I really,
yeah, yeah.
and do you not think COVID has pushed us into that quicker?
I think it has. Yeah, I think it has changed lots of things. It's it's also a bit scary as well, of course. You know, working remotely and needing to be with people and not looking after yourself, not exercising properly. The two of us today, not doing our walk or
Mhm,
whatever.
mhm.
But there's definitely been some upsides for sure.
So that's also in the festival. I'm wanting people to do social stuff. So I always say I want
Mm.
people to do social stuff, and then everyone kind of nods, smiles, and then thinks, well, could we get a panel on what Jeff Watts thinks about Agile Manifesto 2? And I'm like, no, just have a proper have a proper party. So I was talking to Alex Barker. They've just written the kind of the Howard and Sam have just written the How to Be More Pirate book as their second book out, and I said, look, let's do a collider between the pirates and the agilists, right? But it needs to be a real event. It needs to be an event with connection. So when they launched, they went down. The Be More Pirate people went down to the Golden Hind down at
Mm.
Rotherhide, just next to the market, and they had 100 people on that boat to launch. Yeah. So whatever we do, even though we're all going to be remote, and even though we're all going to be global, right? And that collider, we need to find a way to get together. Don't know how.
That's going to be the challenge.
We could
I,
try. I mean, meeting rooms and things will help.
you mentioned earlier on, we got distracted. 'Cause we had a really good conversation, but we talked about shape, and
Mm-hmm.
you said, first of all, you can
Speak.
be a speaker, or you can suggest that people speak, I guess.
Yeah, and
Um, what are the other ones?
the other thing is, and again, in speaking, please get over your imposter syndrome. We're not just trying to get people that have spoken before or people that
Yeah.
are kind of known for speaking.
Mm.
Um, uh, Quite a lot of the big speakers have said, "Well, what do you want us to speak about?" And it's like, "Well, it's you talk about what you want." There isn't a theme. This isn't a conference.
Yeah.
And the next thing is hosting, right? So you can
Okay.
host an event, and that's host an event and then register with us. So again, this isn't a conference. You don't have to say this is what we want to do. Is that okay? Yeah. It's here's the event. I put it into Meetup. I put it into an Eventbrite. Right. Here's what
Yeah.
it is. Here's the value. Here's everything else, and then I register it, and then we'll give it a quick look to make sure that it's that there isn't anything in there that might
Sexual
um,
code of contact, for example. Yeah.
yeah
Yeah.
yeah, but even within that,
Yeah.
it's offensive stuff we're looking for, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but within that, you can host if you're a company, you can host if you're a meetup, you can host if you're a person, yeah, and we'll put you in the program,
Yeah.
and the program will get advertised. So we're hoping
Okay.
to find your market. The other one is attend. So shape, attend.
Yeah.
So we're trying, we're encouraging everyone to go along, find something they want to do, and and really just learn something,
Yeah.
and try and don't try and sit inside your echo chamber. Go and try and learn something that you don't know anything about.
Yeah.
So if you only ever do Scrum, go to one of the
Something
Kanban
else.
groups.
Yeah.
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 Um,
Just don't start a fight, right?
yeah. P is well, if you're having a fight, you are learning. I suppose technically.
So,
P is promote. So if you want to be an ambassador, if you want to do what you're doing here, just now with the podcast, to that, promote. Even, that can be sharing, sharing to other people and getting more people involved. Again, given the numbers, I'm not worried that this isn't going to be successful, because it's going to be successful now. Yeah. But the more we promote, the more people can get involved. And then, what I would hate is for someone to say, oh, I heard about this great festival in March, but I didn't know about it in February and I missed out. So I want that inclusion. So the promotion really helps that. And the last one is enliven. And you're saying you were just looking for a word that started with E, and I was. But it needs to be fun. It needs to be passionate. And this goes back to where I got to last week. I was treating this like a job. I was treating this like I was running a company. I was
yeah.
treating this like it was a lean startup and I was a entrepreneur. And that's when I realized I wasn't having fun.
Yeah.
So I've stepped back. I'm unleading. I'm encouraging everyone else to kind of stand up and lead. And where there's gaps, we can work collectively to get across it.
Yeah.
But now I'm focusing on putting the fun back into it, because there was no point in doing this without fun.
True. And that's something that's really coming across to me in this conversation, your energy, the sense of hope, of possibilities, and just the whole idea and the thinking that you put behind it. It's really,
But
really different.
yeah, but it's kind of really agile.
Yeah. So you're not like one of these guys who's been doing it for 20 years and become cynical. The optimism, the energy, the passion is still there, which is fantastic to see.
I got cynical last year. So last year was a really bad year. Martin died.
Mm.
I, I was 6 stone heavier, so I lost 6 stone.
Wow.
I was, stressing too much, drinking too much, and I was in a really negative place. And yeah, and actually, as I've kind of came out of that, and the community's been around about me, I realised the community sustained me.
What
The
was the
community
turning
helped me.
point for you? What was the like you went through a dark period, like so what was the point that you said, okay, where something did someone intervene? Was it just something you saw? Or did you just realize that you needed to do something different? What do you think? Can you think of a moment? Or,
Yes,
yeah.
I just don't know whether I want to broadcast it.
Okay, no worries, no worries. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Do you remember the day they prorogued Parliament?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I was leaving somewhere I was working, and we had a leaving do in Edinburgh,
Yeah.
and we nice mixed bunch of people enjoying ourselves in Edinburgh, and we went down to a hotel where one of the guys were staying for like some after hours drinks, and we ran into some racists,
Really?
and they were noising up a kind of a Spanish guy at the bar, gonna go home, what you doing over here type thing. Once Brexit happens, this would be great. And
Yeah.
I was in a really kind of bad place with people generally, and yeah, there was a fight. And next morning, I kind of woke up and I went, "Goodness me, what have we got into? What as a group of people have we got into? Where we ended up in a bar fight over the proroguing of Parliament."
But that was the moment.
Yeah, it was. It was I, so I'm a I'm an non-violent guy, right?
Yeah.
So to have actually been a physical fight with 5 guys from England was really scary.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. What do you do when you kind of come up against people that, that are being racist like that?
Yeah.
And yeah,
I have the view on that that it's a waste of energy. Do you think I'm wrong? Like when people are like they're so far removed from where I'm thinking that like that I don't even bother trying to convince them. It's like,
okay.
you
So
know,
probably at the beginning of the evening, before I had
yeah,
10 old fashions, that would have been my view.
yeah, yeah. They're lovely, lovely drink, old fashioned. Yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah,
but for me at that point,
yeah,
I'd gone really negative with everything,
yeah.
and it kind of was bit
Just
of a wake
far
up
too
call.
ahead almost. Yeah.
Bit of a wake up call. Yeah.
And so like losing 6 stone, like that's phenomenal. I'd love to take a leaf out of your book. Like, did you like change your whole lifestyle? Like, did you go on some fancy diet or like what
So
was the?
so I kind of after that fight night, I stopped drinking, and
Yeah,
and I'd kind of I went to get some counselling, and
yeah,
I'd had the counselling and that we went into some. I'm dyslexic, and it's I being dyslexic at school when you're going to be always failing at stuff, and that it puts a lot of buttons in you,
yeah,
and I was kind of bullied at school as well, so there was a lot of work to go
yeah,
through, and
yeah,
I felt by the end of like that counselling, and we're just coming to the end of it at around about January. I just came back from Mexico with my wife, and my wife's Mexican, so we're gonna went out to see the in-laws with the kids, and I just came back, and they were staying out in Mexico for a bit of extended time, and I was on my own,
yeah,
and I thought, well, why don't I have a little think about diets?
yeah,
And I put it onto internet, Facebook. I'm gonna go,
yeah.
thinking about going on diets, and then not a word of a lie, about 4 Agile coaches, right, said, "Have you tried keto?"
Yeah, that's really popular, isn't that?
So Daniel Markham gave me these keto podcasts. Julia Wester out in Sweden, she'd already lost quite a lot of weight with it.
Yeah,
And then oh yeah, Alistair Coburn had been at me. Yeah. So I
kind of
said,
prod me.
I'm thinking of doing this, and what he did was he told me exactly what to buy, and because I was living on my own, I could for that month I could buy stuff. And he contacted me every day in Messenger, and he got me to weigh myself. Yeah, and
That's out to him.
yeah.
You had a
So yeah,
coach basically. You had someone kind of nagging you every day, like yeah. Did you weigh yourself? What have you done?
and that's why I'm a huge debt of gratitude to Alistair for
Yeah.
doing that. Really love the guy.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. And the only thing I heard about keto is that it can be dangerous after a number of months because your body can start rejecting if you make your body so clean, so to speak. It can start rejecting, or you can get allergies actually when you go back onto the normal diet again if you do it for too long.
Yeah.
Well, how have you found that?
Um, well, I mean, again, I love this personal. This is
Yeah,
going to be personal. Yeah. One of the things that I had, so one of the drivers of this was Martin dying. So Martin had a massive heart attack, died in the middle of the night. I was down at the caravan. Lucy, his wife, phoned me and said, "Look, Martin's died," um, and she thought it was kind of like the flu, or he choked or something. And then it turned out it was a massive heart attack. So I did a lot of research into massive heart attacks, what causes them,
yeah,
and a lot of it is kind of fat buildup.
on the
Um,
heart.
yeah,
Yeah,
and but the reasons and that causes of that are really quite interesting, and they're not what you think. So for years I hadn't been eating fat, and I've been eating more or less a vegetable diet, just carbohydrates. What I hadn't realized was it just converted everything to sugar. So basically, I was living off of sugar. So rice and pasta and things. Carbohydrates are just sugars holding hands. You actually look at the chemical formula, and they just break down to sugar. So I was
Yeah.
basically for years on a sugar diet.
Mm.
Probably had some liver problems and some liver things as well. But one of the net results was I was in a lot of pain and inflammation. So I was always sore everywhere. So when I went on this diet, two things happened. One is, and actually I got a friend who's a psychologist, and we spoke to him, and it's quite common. Um, I started doing a lot of things. I started taking vitamin D, but I also started taking cod liver oil,
Yeah.
and I started only eating kind of once a day as well. And um, what really changed was I got much happier. So I got much more happier. So like all my ill feelings, depression, and everything else just went. It was like a light bulb changed.
Wow.
The second thing was all that inflammation and pain went. So from really getting to stage, and it's quite odd now because like yesterday I was in Edinburgh and I was thinking about walking, and I thought, well, that's too far to walk. I'll get sore knees, and then I thought, well, I don't get sore knees now. So I just went and walked. But I'd kind of cautioned my body into like not doing things and not moving around and that because of the pain.
Wow. So
All
good.
that pain's gone.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'll ever go back because I don't
Well,
want the pain again.
yeah, of course. Yeah. Why would you? That's amazing. I hear as well about diet that sometimes we build up acid in our belly, and actually it's our health is. I'm no expert. I know nothing about this, but apparently the health of your gut has a lot to do with our general health, and
Oh,
so
for
that,
sure, for sure. Um,
yeah.
I I use certainly the oils you use. So I
Mm.
don't use vegetable oil as well, and that's quite a link to pain, but also gut health. So basically, a lot of the kind of the vegetable oils that we use nowadays
Yeah.
are really never been part of a human diet before. They're kind of refined like petrol. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I use olive oil. I use avocado oil.
Coconut maybe.
Yeah, coconut, and
Yeah.
if you use a thing called MCT, it goes into your body without having to be broken down by. Again, I'm not
Yeah.
an expert, but I think your
Yeah.
lymph system has to break fats down, but these just go through without it. So really good for the gut as well. So the gut can actually feed off of the oil, as it goes through. So my gut health's been amazing. No indigestion, no pain, happily regular. Really,
Fantastic.
yeah, yeah. If you're interested, there's Dr. Unwin, who's at Southport, I think. Just go to the YouTube of
Doctor Unwin.
yeah, and he's written a couple of cookbooks, and they're great as well because they're kind of Italian inspired. Um, but
So like Celtic dishes basically.
yeah, and it also explains the science of it. So a lot of this is science led. The other guy's an Irishman, Ivor Cummings. He's interesting as he kind of breaks down, just the causes of heart disease, especially the kind of the heart disease like Martin had, where you just kind of, you have that kind of burst and then it kills you. Yeah, so I am honestly feeling so much better, so much healthier. Couldn't even contemplate doing this festival stuff.
Fair play to you. Martin, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I love the way that the conversation kind of developed. It was really, really nice to hear where your positive energy is coming from, because I really felt it from you. It was like you live and breathe it, like you're a living example of it, and you're
Let
trying
me
to
share
find.
it. Let me share a picture. I might
Yeah,
have.
thank you.
Can
Yeah,
I just?
yeah. There's a thing here. You can share screen. There's a share screen button.
Oh, okay, here we go. Let
Yeah,
me have a
yeah, and then I can just throw it up on screen.
brilliant. Let me have a. Let's see. If I just pick that and share, and if I go to my pictures,
Yeah, I can
uh,
turn it on now. Do you want me to share it now?
oh, let me find the. Let me key the picture.
Okay, it's just showing your browser at the moment, so you need to
Yeah.
share something different.
Right. So I can. I'm just gonna show a picture. Let me find it first. 2 seconds. Sorry.
It sounds like a fabulous festival, and I
So what?
understand a lot
So
better
what?
now.
Okay. So you've heard it. What would you build into it? What would help it? What could we do
Um,
to get connection?
I think for me, I have a particular bias anyway, Martin. Or sorry, Scott Martin. Scott,
I used
but
to get that a lot. It's okay.
yeah, because we were talking about Martin so much this evening, I guess it was a kind of a Freudian slip there. But for me, there's loads of solutions for scaling. There's loads of solutions for methods. There's lots of stuff for you don't want to impose, you want to invite, so you can, the heart of Agile and all that kind of cool stuff. Um, there's not much around leadership um,
Okay.
generally. And I'm not talking about the festival, I'm just talking about generally in terms of the world of Agile, right?
Hmm.
There's leadership classes, don't get me wrong, and you've got stuff for change agents who, to help them to be more effective when they're engaging with senior leaders and so on. But something that would not just be open when we talk about being open, like not just to agilists and software, non-software, also to product management people, because there's a bit of a schism there as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to really senior leaders, like what would be in it for? Is there something we could do to make for really senior leaders who felt like they were at a place where they'd be welcome and where they'd want to go? That yeah, I don't know. That's just off the top of my head. It's just a kind of a bias I have at the moment.
So
But
something for the C-suite.
yeah, yeah. And I think it needs to be. I'm not sure if it could be someone like me or anything. It would be like more someone who actually is an executive, who's living and breathing and leading by example. Kind of positive peer pressure kind of thing, or someplace to, even if no one's actually doing anything, that they're just getting together to talk about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
Uh, yeah,
that's a good idea. What
probably be a
yeah.
circle in itself, to be honest.
I'm trying to think of what format we could do that with.
Yeah, you could try liberating structure strings, I guess. But it's just, how do you even get people to come?
Oh,
Why would they want to come?
that's easy by invitation.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, what do I mean by that? I literally mean, I found this by asking people. We've also got some pretty impressive and important speakers here.
yeah,
So
yeah.
why is it when you're looking for a picture you can never find it?
Yeah, it's okay. Don't worry, it's all good.
I'm going to give it up, but there is a background that I tend to use, which
When you're on calls and stuff, is it?
yeah, and it's one that we had.
You're not sitting on a dam or anything, are you? I'm
No,
joking.
no, no,
We're
no.
just talking about anyway.
It was when we started the Heart of Agile group in Scotland, and I can't find it. I'll send it to you later. But yeah, yeah. All right.
You mentioned a lot about. I've noticed as well. You seem to be heavily influenced by Wardley, because you mentioned it. I think you must have mentioned it two or three times.
Yeah. So it's interesting. A lot of the kind of the mapping stuff I think is really important from a strategy point of view. Uh,
Yeah.
Actually, if I was to put a leadership thing in there, I think getting getting beyond the way that the business colleges have taught people to do strategy and
Yeah.
actually to do something like Wardley mapping.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I think that yeah, I think that would be a really interesting thing.
Yeah.
And to think differently around about their business.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. The other thing there is he really his stuff is really it is proper strategy stuff, right?
Yeah.
I think it was Chris Matz that did a great talk, which is like what most agile coaches want to do with companies are like, they go for like, here's a team, and then here's a CEO, and that's it. you know?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But from working with large organizations that with legacy systems that need to come up with a like more of a, it's not just about how do we develop the software. It's like what do we do with where we have our services? What do we do about how do we have horizontal services or with vertical integration, or do we do or and what the various things are? Are we having partners? How are we doing the partners? Are we clouding it or not clouding it? Um, is there even stuff there that we're doing that we shouldn't even be doing in house? That should just be kind of even owned by a third party.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that stuff is really mappable.
Yeah. That sounds that's I might have a look at that myself as well a bit more deeply. It'll require an investment of a few weekends, I think, to kind of really drill into it. I've been
Well,
kind of promising myself to get
yeah.
into it a bit more.
Well, the two interesting things at the moment are Kinefin's just gone open source, I believe. So Dave Snowden's just put the whole of the complexity theory things. I think that's gone available to anyone. Um,
Oh,
and Wardley stuff was always available free.
yeah,
So if you just go to his website, you can download his entire pack. Yeah.
yeah. If you give it away, people can't take it from you, right? It's just free.
Yeah. Well,
I didn't know that.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I mean, again, but what I would, I don't know. I think you might have missed Map Camp. Map Camp was
yeah,
coming up, but I would definitely go to Map Camp. Um, I think that's good, and that's where a lot of the new good thinkers are. So people like Kat Sweetle, Chris McDermott, Mark Bergower. A lot of thinking in here was really cutting edge, and in my experience, you learn more from talking to the people there and thereabouts.
cool. I'll check that out. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's where your interest is, and in what you're doing. I've kind of gone the other way. I've gone the heart of Agile, which is kind of basically doing the basics again, and I find that quite interesting. So instead of thinking about other things in depth, we're actually going back to radical simplicity of ideas.
Yeah,
So any organization I can go into and say, well, how are we collaborating? How can we collaborate better?
I think executives will really appreciate that. Actually, that's an area of opportunity for me. I have to say.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
I mean, again, we're probably going to do an event. Uh, at NatWest, we had a kind of an open day, and Shane Gallen, Irish ambassador, he kind of summarized the whole idea of the kokoro or the essence. So you've had a shuhari, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So if you go to Japanese like sushi or sword manufacturer or anything, they have shuhari kokoro. So kokoro is the essence.
Ah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So like Mr. Miyagi, where he's going to wax on, wax off. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's the essence of what we're doing. So I, when I reached the point of understanding this, and again, I'd heard Alistair say it several times, but Shane really brought it home to me. It's that essence of well, what is collaboration? Are we collaborating? How could we collaborate better? Suddenly, you're in conversations with HR. You're in conversations with Zoom. We're having all these conversations. Think about the biggest story of this 2020 must have been collaboration, and how could we collaborate better? And then delivery. I mean, instead of like saying, is our dashboard there? Are we having stand-ups? Are we got a retrospective? Yeah. Are we spending 3 hours a week on innovation? All input measures, right? Just to ask the question, how are we delivering? How could we deliver better? And again, how we, reflecting, and then actually splitting reflection and improvement off. I had this conversation today with someone, which is a great coach, Yako, and he's saying, yeah, we have retros all the time. We come up with lists of all the things that are wrong. I said, yeah, well, what are you doing about it?
Exactly.
So imagine if we started putting backlog items in there for experiments, and then I go back into my lean stuff, and I say, this is just the hypothesis-driven theory for improvement that lean's had for 30 years. So yeah, that's it. Radical simplicity in Agile is probably what energizes me.
And it's what the world needs. And I want to thank you so much, Scott, for coming on the
Thank
show and
you.
talking with us. And you've hit my reset button as well on the heart of Agile. So thank you for doing that for me. And I'll be digging into that later in the week. And best of luck as well with the festival. I've registered myself, I think, to be a speaker. I might register a couple of meetups as well. And I'd encourage anybody who's watching or listening to definitely check it out. Thank you so
Well,
much.
I mean, keep the conversation going with the leadership event, okay?
Yeah, yeah,
And we could maybe, I'm sure Wardley or others would come along to that.
yeah. Sounds great. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
Bye bye.
over and out, everyone. Thank you so much.